I think the number one takeaway I would say is how the concept of how everything leads, bleeds into each other, basically, of like how you start your day, how you start your morning, your mindset, and how that can work into, your business, your personal life, just kind of like the way you do one thing is how you do everything type concepts. Because I see that so much discussed in the group chat and just kind of on all the calls and everything like that. It comes back to anytime somebody has an issue or a problem, it's not just, we're not just troubleshooting that specific, let's say it's a money problem. Okay, well, where does that money problem start? And like you say, it's a math problem, right? Most things come down to a math problem, but kind of reverse engineering your day or your situation to actually get to the root cause and condition of the end result that is problematic. So I think that kind of overall connection is probably my biggest takeaway so far.
I love that, bro. That's a good one. Well, like, dude, why don't you tell the guys who you are and what you do, and we'll just hop into this.
Yeah, who I am, I own a roofing and remodeling company. So I'm a general contractor here in Texas, North Texas to be specific. I've been in the business for 15 years now, pretty much 15 years. I think I started doing sales back in 2009 when I was pursuing a graduate degree. And then I got, finished that degree, went to work in corporate America, did not work out there. Um, and then just found myself back in after, a couple of rounds of layoffs throughout, my post-college career, found myself back in doing sales in roofing and I've been here ever since. And now as an owner an operator. I've been doing on my own now for almost 2 years. I started Archway almost 2 years ago. I've got a family, wife. We've been married going on let me do math, 4 years now. So we have an 18-month-old daughter. It was awesome. So and we kind of live outside the metroplex. We moved out into a growing suburb, so we moved outside of the city and out into the country. Pretty much, it's country now, surrounded by farm, but it'll, in the next 10 years, it won't be farm. So I've got been sober, clean and sober for 21 years, going on 22. Like I said, I previously mentioned I've got two college degrees, and now I'm a business owner and a husband. So I also enjoy martial arts, do jujitsu. I'm on maternity leave, right, or paternity leave, I should say, right now. But I'll be getting back into the swing of training here shortly. So I got my brown belt in jujitsu and done competitions and on the local scale, stuff like that. I think the competing days are probably behind me just because priorities, right? Is don't want to the injury risk isn't worth it, honestly, with what I have at stake now as a business owner and a father and stuff like that. I love the competition aspect of it, but it's just something better suited for a different phase in life. So, but the training and the goal of the black belt and continuing to train is still there. So
I
that's
love
kind of me
it.
in a nutshell.
That's awesome, bro. Good for you. Yeah, man, I love martial arts. I love any combat sports. It's
It's
just
great.
something about it, dude. It gets me fired
Yeah.
up. No, man, I mean, so it's funny before you made the comment, I like wrote it down in my notes. It was like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? That's something that obviously we do talk very heavily on inside of Uncaged, but also like I like the way how like you kind of put it too, like everything bleeds into everything else. And like it's true. And obviously it's kind of a different version of that, quote or saying that we say inside of Uncaged. But like if you start to really conceptualize like man, if you wake up and I can tell a difference in my day if I like wake up and like I get on like social media and I just get consumed by outside influences and stuff like that. And or if I wake up and I stick to my routine, right? Like I do my devotion, I do my critical tasks, I engage with other like-minded men, like I do, I connect with my wife. Like there's I can 100% tell a difference in the whole trajectory of the rest of my day. And in fact, a part of like what we do inside Uncaged is we're pretty extreme on things, right? And so like at least that's my goal for, some of the members inside of Uncaged. So for me, like I've taken everything that I know is like a detriment to me, like off my phone. Like it's just not worth it. Like, you were even talking about, the risk of injury is not worth it. Like sometimes we recognize that the risks aren't worth the rewards in certain things. And so yeah, man, I might be able to hop on social media and get a little dopamine release, but like what's a cooler dopamine release? Like what I can do in 30 minutes on my cell phone, or like winning the fucking day and like knowing like when I go to bed at night, like I've done all my critical tasks. Like I've engaged with the right people. I've selectively chosen what influences me throughout the day, and so like I think, as we progress through life, some of us learn that sooner than later. Some of us have to take a little harder hit before a little bump on the bigger bump on the head before, that lesson gets through. But what, like, what are some like instances where you've like genuinely noticed so you learned this concept, right? Like, and not that you didn't know it, but like you were like, all right, like this does make sense. This is something I can attach myself. What are some like examples of like you have noticed in your life that truly like certain parts of your life bleed over into other areas if you're either not careful or you want it to, and you're very systematic in making positive things bleed over? What's some of those experiences been like for you?
Yeah, I think on the, more like the personal side of talking about that bleed over, like being in recovery, right? So 21 years sober in through 12-step programs. So kind of the basis of that, and a lot of that is kind of reframing the way you live, basically, right? Changing your habits and thought process and stuff like that. But one of those concepts is changing people, places, and things, right? Of where you hang out. So, maybe you've heard the saying, if you go to a barbershop every day, eventually you're going to get your hair cut, right? So, if someone's trying to on anything, like you're trying to eat better or you're trying to drink less, or if you got your fridge stocked full of snacks and pantry full of candy and junk food, your likelihood of success on your whatever health goal is a lot less. Same thing with sobriety, stuff like that. If you're still going to the bar, hanging out with all your drinking friends, doing whatever, you're eventually going to pick up again, just because that's where you surround yourself with. So I think that kind of the bleed over is in a lot of sense of who you surround yourself with and kind of what activities I'm doing on a daily basis. Because, if I start to sleep in, which I'm apt to do, right? Suddenly that time gets pushed back further and further. And then I'm not doing, like you mentioned, the morning routine, right? And so, oh, maybe I'll exercise in the afternoon. But then the afternoon gets busy and no, that's a no-go, right? I know it's not happening. So I need to do it in the morning. Same thing with just connecting on the phone, social media. That's a big challenge for me right now, honestly, is disconnecting and trying to find ways, like you're talking about. I've seen you do it actually, is disconnect from it and take that stuff off the phone. So I think that those positive things um are kind of how it bleeds in, how you talk to yourself, how you start your day, how you finish your day. I didn't really consider that too much. For most of my life, I was, staying up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and just not kind of, as a good friend of mine said, living like college hours, right? And changing that to just be more effective throughout the day. You see some of the people in Uncaged that are very strict and regimented. Maybe strict's not the word, but they're disciplined, right? They're disciplined, and the results that you see in their life are something that I aspire to be like, right? So they have what I want in that aspect. And just on the negative side, it's like if I start eating, hamburgers every day at lunch, what's going to happen? I'm going to start wanting one, right? I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to lose, track. I'm slowly, whatever I sacrifice today, I'm not going to do, or I don't have time. It's going to build eventually, right? It's not going to all fall apart all at once or blow up in my face, but it's just that same thing. It's not all going to change for the positive either, after one day of doing it. And so it's just that kind of the stacking, the domino effect of either positive or negative impacts in my life. It's very apparent, in business. If, I'm doing my profit producing task or marketing post or whatever it is, I'm doing it every day. or regularly, however I schedule it, I'm going to get those results. And as soon as I stop, I'm going to stop getting those results eventually. So it all, the work I do today, the things I do today, I may not see the results until 3, 6 months, maybe 2 years, right? Think about a health journey. I've lost a lot of weight over the last 10 years, right? But that didn't start after 3 months in the gym. That was a long time coming and had other health issues going on and stuff like that. So it's something you look back at, you see a picture from 5 years ago and you're like, holy crap, that's a completely different person, right? I don't even recognize that guy anymore. So it's just those that it all ties into that, 1% better, how you do, one thing is how you do everything. And it's kind of internalizing those concepts to know that making that kind of the baseline of activity on a daily basis. So.
No, man, I 100% agree. And, it's funny because, like, we kind of joke about it. Like, health, wealth, and relationships is like really the personal, pillars that we focus on inside of Uncaged. And I always kind of joke about it. It's like, if you go to hire like a health coach, like your health coach is going to tell you, like, bro, you got to get your health in line. Because if you don't get your health in line, then it's going to start affecting like your sex life. And if your sex life goes downhill, then like mentally it's going to throw you off and it's going to push you and your wife apart. And then they're also going to be like, and if you don't get your health right, like, you're not going to be able to work the long hours you need to in your business, or you're not going to, your gut is your second brain. So you're not thinking correctly. Like there's this like whole like you know, pitch that they give you on like if you don't get your health in line, it'll affect your relationships and your wealth. And then like if you hire a relationship coach is gonna be like, have you ever like tried to go to work after a breakup? Like, you can't really do your job because you're so mentally fucked and you're all you can think about is what went wrong in the relationship and blah blah blah. And then like, also if you don't get your relationship, in line, like you're not gonna have the motivation or the desire to go to the gym and you're going to want to spend time with your significant other instead of taking time away to go focus on yourself, blah blah blah. So you got to get your relationships in check before your health and your wealth can get better. But then you have a wealth coach, and your wealth coach is like, man, have you ever been laying in bed with your wife and completely feel like you're not even in the room because you're so distracted about not making money or the bills that have to be paid or past due invoices or blah blah blah. But then they're like, also, you know, you can't even afford to go to the gym. Like you can't afford to take time off. Like you have to be in this seat all day, every waking hour. So like you got to focus on your business first. You got to make money before you can ever focus on your wealth or your health or your relationships. And it's like, so like they all have their perspective on what we kind of originally talked about is everything bleeds over to everything else is like, if you don't, but they're all actually right. The piece that we're not doing here is communicating with all three of those coaches and being like, oh shit, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. But then also everything bleeds over because, like, if you aren't focused on bettering yourselves in all areas of your life, to your point, you will start slipping and you slip from one, it causes you to start slipping from the other. And you slip from that one, and it's going to cause you to start slipping from the other. And like, I know this may sound overwhelming to anyone that's like listening that hasn't gone down this journey yet and like seen that it's okay, that it's not as scary as it sounds. But I agree with you. Like you have to start with one, pick one, and then like as that starts to improve, as you start to get more bandwidth because you're getting more efficient, right? Then you add in the next layer, and then you add in the next layer, and like you get to this point where like your life becomes like symbiotic to where you are regimented, you are disciplined, and you do understand that like the end goal is what we're fighting for, not the like current day comfort. And I mean, like, have you start to see any of that like kind of come to fruition in your life since you've really started focusing on like, being better in all areas of your life? Because like again, how you do one thing's how you do everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, completely. Honestly, if you looking at me a year ago, about a year ago when I joined Uncaged, and even 2 years ago, is personally is completely different. Our finances, debt situations, spending habits, everything is different. And even in the health, like this morning, like I built out in our house, we got a 3-car garage. That was my ultimatum. Hers was 3 bathrooms. Mine was 3-car garage because I wanted to build out a gym. I wanted that story, right? And so This morning it was like 20 degrees. I did not want to get out there, but I was out there, right? And I'm doing it, feeling better. And I know that if I skipped on that, I would feel it for the rest of the day. It would just be kind of hanging over. And then, like I said, the finances, even my relationships, my personal relationships, a lot of that has changed in the last year or two. Circumstances of life change. Obviously, having a child makes a big difference. Getting married, first of all, and then having a kid make those are big changes. I was a bachelor, for a long time. I didn't get married. I got married. I was 40, I think, when I got married. And my daughter's only 18 months, so that was a big change. And just slowly doing those things and focusing on the quality of relationships, who I spend my time with, who I want to be around, um, and how I want to invest myself, or how I'm able to invest myself, really, as priorities change. But and then business wise, I think I know from this year, from last year, we've almost tripled in revenue, a little bit over triple in revenue.
Fuck
And I
yeah.
started about midway through the year in 2024. But that's just slow, steady progress, right? Like just last night, or Sunday morning, I get a text message, from a guy I hadn't talked to in a couple of years, and he's needing some work done, and just stuff that just by those regular, activities of being front of mind, out there, branding, everything like that. Those calls come in more often than they don't. And I got one from a couple of weeks ago from a guy I went to high school with, who I haven't talked to in 25 years. Didn't even know he lived in Dallas. All of a sudden, he needs work done. So we got a project going. So just things like that is may seem, you can be in like the lull, especially towards the end of the year. I heard somebody call it the valley of despair for business owners, right? Like a perfect description of going into, basically the next month, right? Your last 2 weeks or first 2 weeks of the year, no one's really doing a whole lot of anything. But just those being consistent even throughout, whether it's you know, things are good, things are bad, things are indifferent, still doing the same thing. I know, in the recovery circles, there's, kind of saying that, job, no job, wife, no wife, house, no house, still do those things that you need to in order to maintain your sobriety. And it's just, it's going back with that and keeping committed to the goal, basically.
Yeah. No, there was a few times and just hearing you talk. So like this has recently been like top of mind for me is like, we all talk about cool things and what's cooler than this or that. And and I'm talking about individually, like we conceptualize what makes something cooler than something else. And that's kind of where we like divert energy to is like whatever the cooler thing is, whether that's anything. Like it's across the board. But like for me, in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, what's fucking cooler than like succeeding? And again, like succeeding it depends. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own goal of like what success looks like and what it means for them in their life. But like at the end of the fucking day, the only thing that's fucking cool is like doing what it is you set out to do, like whatever the fuck that is, right? If I wanted to lose 100 pounds, the only thing that's fucking cool, like the cheesecake ain't fucking cool. Like losing the 100 pounds is cool, right? Like if you
Yeah,
want to become the first millionaire in your family because you want to create legacy for the rest of your lineage, like the fucking Ferrari's not cool. Like being the first, like there's these things along the way that like either distract us or try to throw us off our game, and like they create like immediate comfort or immediate like satisfaction. But like that's like the difference between like when you can pull yourself out of that like impulsive thought process and say like at the end of the day, what is cooler than being cool? Ice cold,
exactly.
bro. And, like,
Cool.
what's cool? What's cooler than being like, than doing what the fuck you said you were gonna do when you said you were gonna do it? Like, I can't. I have a hard in the time in the trenches. Sometimes it's hard to see that, but like if we can start to remind ourselves, like I look at my fucking whiteboard, like it genuinely fucking speaking. What the fuck to me is cooler than succeeding at that? And mind you, it's because this involves my wife and my daughter. Like my wife and I, like we set these goals. So like at the end of fucking 5 years, I'm looking at the top right of this whiteboard. What's cooler than being there? In my mind, fucking nothing. And so like I think that's something like that us men have to really like kind of give ourselves because we're all prideful in nature. And some of us take pride in different things. But like at the end of the fucking day, and again, your goals might not be mine, might not be the next, might not be the person that's listening. And that's okay. But at the end of the day, like as a prideful human, and a lot of times pride gets misconstrued. Like pride isn't going out and getting the keys to that Ferrari. Like pride isn't like, it might be masked as that, but like at the end of the day, pride in a man should be able to say, I'm going to do this and then fucking doing it. End of story. And that's just my perspective on it. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but
Yeah, definitely good. I mean, when you're able to accomplish the goal, like when last year, my wife and I decided that we wanted to purchase, right? I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't even know if this is possible, right? Like because we gave ourselves a relatively short time frame to get everything in order. Um, once we had a condo and we were just with the baby, it was just not enough, right? And but it happened. I mean, we dedicated everything we did was focused around that goal, right? And then comes April, and I was like, holy crap, we actually did it, right? This actually happened, and it happened faster than we had anticipated. Um, and everything just came together, and we found the right floor plan with everything that we needed or wanted. Rather, need than wants met for the most part. The closet isn't as big as she would like, but it doesn't matter what size that closet is; it's going to be full. So,
yeah, right.
yeah, it could be a three-car garage and she's still fill it up. Um, but all those things, it's just, and you look at it in the accomplishment. I mean, me for being a father, honestly, I've wanted kids my entire life, as far as I could, remember. And there's a long portion of my life where I didn't think it was going to happen for me, and was trying to come to acceptance of that. And even then, it's like, when you're not looking to have kids, it's really easy to get pregnant. But when you're trying to, it's a whole different story. And you're like, well, that's the fun part. I mean, yes, but no. At the same time, it's stressful and can be very heartbreaking, right? But the being a father is the greatest thing I've ever experienced by far. Blows anything out of the water. And that experience of just sitting here and thinking, like when I'm holding my daughter for the first time, like, wow, this is actually happening, right? This is it, and it's just, it's absolutely mind blowing. There's no way to describe it, and like the joy and just the shift in mindset, and when the more future thinking, because for most of my life I lived for the moment, in a lot of ways. And because I didn't really have much tied to, yeah, I was thinking forward in business and stuff like that, but I didn't have anything to tie to a legacy, right? I didn't have any one to care for, essentially, right? I mean, outside of my family, my immediate family and stuff like that. But as far as like a daughter or children or a wife, I didn't have that responsibility. And taking that on, where that pride comes from, of like, she's not going to go without, and she's going to know that she's loved throughout her entire life, and that she's protected. And knowing that I'm doing that already on a daily basis, even when I feel like I'm failing or I'm missing the mark, um, you know, when she comes up and gives me a hug, that's it. It's over. It's completely over, right? And that's just game one right there. So, yeah, I totally agree that the pride and accomplishment, even you take martial arts for example, like you talk about, you either win or you learn, right? And it's not just kind of a way to pacify losing in competition, but you're getting out there, you're competing. Like the first time I competed, I didn't. I remember when I started training in 2019. The instructor at the time kind of, I told him I wanted to compete, and he kind of looked at me like, "You want to compete?" Like, I mean, I was a white belt, right? We were all trash, but I'm still trash at the brown belt. But it just kind of, it felt dismissive, is what it felt like. Like, you're not there. And so then when I finally did it, I had a different instructor at the time. COVID had hit and all that sort of all these changes, but just the going out there and doing it, and I got whooped, right? Whatever. It is what it is. I was like fresh blue belt. I'm out there with guys that had a lot more experience, but I did it. Then, the result was is that I did it and I accomplished that goal. And I challenged myself and I saw what I could do and that I belonged. That's the biggest takeaway from that competition. I remember telling my professor at the time, is like, I feel like I belong because I went out there not knowing if I did or not, or if I could compete. And I did. And so I know my skill set that I belong. And I think for me, a lot of life has been spent wondering whether I belong or not. And it might sound, to people who know me closely, that might sound insane, um, just because I fit in so well everywhere. And I have good relationships and value relationships and a lot of accomplishments, but still feeling like, do I really belong here? And that accomplishment of that goal, whatever the goal is, if you get it, or even if you fall short of it, right? I'm still here. I'm in the game, and this is where I belong. And so that pride is where, not even pride, but that satisfaction, that self-esteem, the just knowing that you can do it carries over into any and every other area of your life if you choose it to, or if you allow it to.
100%, bro. Yeah, I agree. And that's, I've said that for a long time with when it comes to men feeling like men, like the big difference is how, like, you can tell a man that knows, like, when he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And there's not going to be a question because it's just, it's become his way of life, like that is his nature is to win, and that's not to, it's not like some alpha male mentality, but like it truly is like, and again, like we had that whole conversation at the retreat, like between alpha and beta, and like, because it was really cool to see some of the guys that believe that, or that identify with like a beta leadership role, and how like it doesn't matter what, if alpha leadership role or beta leadership role, both extremely important, both can be incredible leaders, they just lead different ways. But at the end of the day, like I've seen guys who from an outside in, you would claim maybe have like a beta leadership role and responsibility that are way more, and I'm using, like, for anyone that's like just listening, not watching the video, like I'm using air quotes here, and like, because I'm not an alpha male beta male kind of person, but like I know a lot of dudes that would, the world would identify as beta males that are way more badass than guys that fucking claim to be alpha. And it all comes down because these guys are motherfuckers that do what the fuck they say they're gonna do when they say they're gonna fucking do it. And at the end of the fucking day, to be a man, that's what it comes down to. So like, you say you're gonna get out there and fucking roll, get out there and fucking roll, dog. And like that's where your self-confidence comes from, because you know that like that's who you are, is someone that does what they say they're going to do. And that's it, bro. And like, that's the, in my opinion, as a man, that's the key to success. I'm not saying like, but that is the key to it, is do what the fuck you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Boom, end of story.
Yeah, 100%. I think, anytime, it doesn't matter if I say I'm gonna, I don't know, I'm gonna fold the laundry and I don't. And next week I see it just piling up, like, oh, it just is little things that will bring down your mindset. It could be as small as laundry, it could be, or my customer experience, right? If I miss the mark on that, I don't get back in time, or I give myself a deadline, or I tell them I'm gonna have whatever, deliverable in 48 hours and I don't do it, I feel like crap,
Yep.
and it just digs at me and just eggs on, and then you got to do something else to, take your mind off it and distract it. But at the end of the day, in the back of my mind, it's still that I didn't get that done. I
No
missed that
doubt.
mark. You can put all
Anxiety.
the
Go.
exactly, yeah, right. You can put all the labels like, alpha, beta, gamma, whatever, and I don't think a complete individual, which I don't think that I am yet, that's what I don't know if I'll ever be, but that's kind of the ideal that I'm working towards. Um, can't just be summed up with one label or one silo. If I just focus on, I'm, XYZ of all these different things, and I'm really kind of missing the point of, like, to your point of, like, the so-called beta leader who is actually strong as shit, because like I said, it goes back to the integrity and your values that are more important than, like, the labels. Think of some of the guys on Uncaged, if they just stuck at their labels,
Mhm.
they would miss the mark of who they actually are, you
Mhm.
know.
Well,
And same thing is like can get tied down with labels, and those are just for me they're restricting and put you into silos in a lot of ways because you know if when I look at a complete person, like the people that I admire or mentors that I have, they're functioning at higher levels. I I perceive higher levels than myself in multiple different areas of their lives. Health, wealth, personal relationships, marriage, family, whatever. Um, and so, but they can be different people in different things, right? And their strengths and their weaknesses are different, depending on what area of their life they're talking about. So yeah, it goes back to that. It just at the core of it is they do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. They're
yeah,
trustworthy. They have that integrity, uh, and being that um, is definitely it's hard. It really is. It's simple. Obviously, you put it on paper, it's simple, but that those temptations, kind of like you were, mentioning earlier, to just do it the easy way or cut a corner here, stuff like that. Those kind of daily attacks at the mindset and the integrity. Um, I think the more I focus on a goal or the more positives that I have going in my life, the more challenges and obstacles that are come my way at the same time. And so that's where the knowing myself, my values, my integrity, um, is even more important the more work that you do. So, I mean, it's easy when you don't have anything going for yourself and you treat people like crap and you're not trustworthy and you lie, cheat, steal, like whatever. That's just how you are. You can just be the guy on the couch. But if you want to be something a lot more, a lot greater, those obstacles are going to come your way.
100%, bro. Well, dude, I fucking appreciate you hanging out with me. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to pay you back for the time you spent here with us?
I mean, just keep doing it, keep pouring into everybody. Honestly, I hate saying that phrase. I think it's the cheesy 2024, 25. I don't know what the catchphrase is going to be next year, but we'll find something, right? But honestly, just giving back and investing because that's where, people like me, because the way I came into Uncaged was by other people that I knew and saw and spoke about it,
Mhm.
and by their experiences. So kind of a attraction rather than promotion type thing. And the way we attract people is just by being who we are and doing what we do. So just keep that up.
That's awesome, bro. I appreciate it, man. It's always good to hear stuff like that because that's what we're trying to do here is just, the power of the collective group. Man, well, it's been awesome hanging out with you. I appreciate you. And for everyone that's listening, if you want to connect with Joseph at all, reach out to him directly. If you can't find him directly, reach out to myself or anyone in Uncaged. We'd be more than happy to connect you. Other than that, we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.